still today, there's so much disbelief around ADHD and what it is. Still really advocate for people, like, just believe people when they say they have ADHD. It may not be obvious, but just believe them. It will help them. And it will help your relationship with them.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, okay, we know where Canada is, in British Columbia, on the west coast, right? Right. And you have that big city there, yeah, Vancouver. And where are you in relation to Vancouver? We are 500 miles or 800 kilometers for our European friends north of Vancouver. And that puts us in the center of British Columbia, north-south, east-west, big province. And then the city, Prince George, relatively small, but still a nice city, about 80,000 people. Lots of forest. Within 50 miles, we have 100 lakes and lots of other friends in nature. Black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, foxes, deer, you name it, we have them all here. We call it paradise. Now, today we have a very, very interesting podcast. It is with a lady called Sue Day. And Sue was diagnosed in the very early days of ADHD diagnosis, before most people even knew about it, for all intents and purposes, way back in 1988. She mostly ignored her ADHD, dropped out of high school, not uncommon either, and struggled through college, a failed business, and widely found a successful career in nonprofit financing, seemingly one of the most boring and detailed jobs, I would say. And so the reason that I can comment about it, because I'm also ADHD and have dyslexia. And I call it a superpower, and we'll be talking about all of that. Sue, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And I love hearing about Prince George. I'm just south and, well, a little bit south in Portland, Oregon, but
Beautiful
I just
city.
love sort of more rural cities. And so I'd love to hear about it.
Thanks, Sue. Yeah, obviously, I was born in Holland in 1940, so I'm 85 years young, and and came to Canada when I was 24 years old. So I've been here for 60 years. I fly around a lot, do a lot of business in the United States, and every time I fly, especially on the West Coast, from British Columbia through Washington, Oregon, California, and on. And I look outside. I always sit by the window and I said, it's paradise. It is paradise. We are so lucky in North America. And obviously, Americans and Canadians very, very close, have always been for the last 200 years. And, and especially in these interesting times, to say the least, still we are very, very close. And so that then being said, Sue, give me and our guests watching us from around the world, tell us about your background. Where were you born? Where did you go to school, including high school, and other colleges and other things that you did? And then obviously that brings us to 1988, when you decided in some form or fashion to get to say, why are you so different, Sue? And you probably thought, well, I'm going to have to figure that out. And you got a diagnosis. So bring us all the way forward from the beginning.
Yeah. So I was born in Concord, Massachusetts. I went through this Concord, Massachusetts school system and Concord Carlisle High School, which is supposedly one of the best school systems in the country. However, they were not. They were not very friendly for different brains. I got really high test marks and really poor report cards all of my life. I went to Concord Carlisle High School. About 2 years into that, I was again getting high grades, but poor, um, poor attendance records and things like that. Wasn't very good at following the rules. I went to a private school for a year and also didn't do super well there. So I guess that must have been my second year of high school. So I went to a private school and they said, well, you know, you're not going to work out here. And that's when I got tested, is sort of the halfway mark of my high school career. Um,
Now,
and hmm,
now that was still very early, 88. That is
mhm,
37 years ago, if I have my math right here, nearly 40 years ago for all intents and purposes. That was
yeah,
still in the early days that, and I just throw a little bit about me. I was born, as I indicated, in 1940. During the war years, we were liberated by the Canadian Army April the 12th, 1945. It saw far that we should not have seen and all the other kind of stuff. And the Canadians liberated us April the 12th, 1945. I was born in the northeastern part of Holland, 10, 15 minutes from the German border. It made such an impression on me that I knew from that point forward, as I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I did. I was trying to go when I was 17. My parents wouldn't let me. I was then drafted into the Dutch Air Force. The draft was mandatory then, not anymore now. Was there for over 2 years. And then when I was 24, I left for Canada. So the in between, though, academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times. So my parents were beautiful people, and a lot of people said to them, "You said, what are we going to do with this guy?" And they said, "Well, maybe send him to the mentally challenged school." They said, "No, we're not going to do that." So I was 12 and a half years old when I left grade 7 for the third time after failed. And they said, "Let's get him a job." My grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked in lumber. So they said, "Let's get him a job at a furniture factory, and then he can work with his hands because he's not too bright, obviously, and probably working with his hand probably maybe would get him a career." So they did that. At 12 and a half years old, I started working in a furniture factory, and then in the evening I would go to college and learn to become a furniture maker, which served me
hmm,
very, very well then. But I always had this issue of, who am I? Why am I so different? And so friends are not easy. And in school in Holland there was a question of that if you were doing a test, you were rated from 0 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. And it would be a normal practice in grade 7 in particular that the teacher would go say blah blah blah, got a 9, and so got a 7, and then the other so and so got an 8, and that was very, very good. And then at the end of the story they said, "And John Brink, as usual, got a 0." And so and so that's kind of who I was. And but I always stayed optimistic in my own little world, but friends are not easy. So the ones that still went on to college and university, I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then I was looked down on. So I kind of always felt two things: that my dream was to go to Canada, to the land of my heroes. The other dream I had to prove to me, only me, that I was just as smart as anybody else, not better than, but just as smart as ever. But I had to start anew. And because in Holland, the way it worked is that no matter what happens, you buy a house or you get a job or you do a career or you get a girlfriend, and then the first time that you're invited by the parents to come have dinner at the house, I remember still, probably I was 17, 18, I don't know, so. And so the dad said, Dan, so John, my name is Jan, now John, they said, what are you going to do in your life? Listen to a daughter, listen to this guy. He didn't even do high school. The guy is a loser. He will never amount to much. He didn't say that, but indirectly implying it. And so, so that always I knew I had to start anew. And so I did that. So when I came to Canada in July of 1965, flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada from Montreal to Vancouver, because that's where all the trees are in British Columbia, Washington State, Oregon, Northern California, as you well know. And so came to British Columbia, to Vancouver, couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. And the train ride was 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way to go. And so when I arrived, I went to the immigration office and I couldn't speak the language. And fortunately, there was a German fellow. I could speak some German. And I told him what I wanted to do. He said, go to Prince George. That's where you have to go. That's where they're building all the sawmills, all the pulp mills, and all the other things. That's 60 years ago. And so I can still see, looking out here from our studio here, where the Greyhound bus stopped. And so I came off the bus here in Prince George, and with my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and couldn't speak the language, didn't have a job, didn't know a soul, but I was going to build a lumber mill. And I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But attitude, I've always been positive, even still today. I avoid negative, don't even come close to me. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. And then the other part is work ethic. I work harder than anybody, and even still now, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so, and yes, I did build a lumber mill and a lot of other companies, and so, but it's not about that. But so that I had to still find out, who am I? I was still here, and people said to me, "Oh, you're already quite into my being here and building companies," and I still was wondering, who am I? And so I never quite figured it out until a couple of things happened. I went into a bookstore here after I was here already for 32 years. In 1997, January 97, I walked into a store and I picked up a book. I don't know why. I'm going to show you the actual book. I picked it up and I still don't know why did I pick up that book. And the book's title was Driven to Distraction by Dr. Halliwell, who's a professor, a doctor, has written 18 books actually, and is very well known as an expert in the field of ADHD, and he has dyslexia and ADHD. And the more I started looking at the book and starting to read it, I nearly wore it out. And started to look at Google, and when I looked at the book and I started, even in the store, going through the book, and I must have been there at least for 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. And the guy that owned the store said, hey John, what are we doing here? So no, I'm just kidding. I obviously bought the book. And then I wrote in the book, it's still on here, January 1997. I had never even heard about ADHD, didn't even know it existed. And I wrote in here in Dutch because it was implying a mental disorder of some description. And so now I finally know who I am in Dutch. And that became the book. Then from there on in, I started looking at Google and start checking things out. more and more. And then it took me another 5 years. I was 57 when I picked up the book. It took me another 5 years before I would go to my doc, and was a personal friend, delivered our two daughters actually. And he said to me, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, "I think I got ADHD." And we checked it out, and yes, I do. And so, but by then, I already had concluded that it was not a liability or a stigma as that was attached. It's a superpower. And I still believe that today, the more I know about it, the more I've done about it, and I've written a book about it as well. But you are my podcast number 420 on the brink. I did a podcast 203 with Dr. Halliwell. And for all those people that are ADHD and may think they have ADHD or be involved in any area, that I believe that the frequency of occurrence is so frequent that you cannot avoid not to being involved with or in ADHD. So it is then a must to get to know about it, because as we will talk about in a little bit with you, is we tend to be different. Not worse or not better, but different. And it is important to know that. And so with my podcast with Dr. Halliwell, podcast number 203, on the brink, we talked about, I suggested to, he's the expert, I lived it, is that I believe that the frequency of occurrence is not what I initially thought, maybe 6, 7, 8% of the population, I don't know, but the more I found out about it, I thought it would be more than maybe even 20%. So I suggested to Dr. Halliwell that I believe it would be at least or anywhere around 20%. He said, "No, John, it's more than 25%. I agree with him. The other part about it that we talked about is that with all the businesses I've been involved in and all the things that I've done, I've met a lot of very, very successful individuals that were on directors, board of directors, or business. And of all the people that I've met, I suggested to Dr. Halliwell, at least my impression is that of all this, in the successful entrepreneurs, business people, and individuals, and period, and the operative is successful, I believe that probably 50% of them are ADHD. He said, "No, John, probably 75%. I agree with him. So, and with all the other things I've done around ADHD, that I believe probably globally, and you correct me if I'm wrong from your opinion, is that frequency of occurrence is the same between males and females, although females present it differently than males do, likely. And so my experience, and that I believe on a global basis, after spending all this time as knowing myself as ADHD, that the probably globally the frequency of occurrence is probably closer to 30%, both male and female, in my opinion. And so, that then being said, the other part that is amazing, different for you, but for me, when I left school after failing grade 7 for the third time, at 12 and a half years old, getting a job in a factory and being considered to be not bright enough to be in business or to study in university, and probably should become a laborer. It took me 62 or till I was 62 that I got diagnosed. So for 50 years, and I was already quite successful even in Holland before I came, but still wondering, who am I for all that period of time, 50 years, before I got diagnosed as ADHD, and it changed my life. and that was at 62. So that gives you a bit of my background, and that in the meantime, I have 5 books. My last one coming out is this one, coming out in July. It's about communication skills, and that's why it's called Billionaires. How they got there and what is the foundation. Most of them are likely ADHD as well, in my opinion. And then the other book that I read is ADHD Unlocked, and so, and you are also an author, but so that's kind of my background. So tell my guest your experience.
Yeah. So that's fascinating that you worked with your hands, and it helped you, right? When I dropped out of high school after getting kicked out, I haven't figured out how to figure this out yet. I got diagnosed in Sudbury, Massachusetts. My guess is it was Ned Hallowell and his office where I got diagnosed, because that's where he worked. There just weren't that many places around. So haven't figured out how to prove that yet, but so
Interesting.
um yeah, no, I still want to figure that out somehow. But
Actually, Dr. Halliwell
so
wrote this book in 1993, and I
yeah,
bought it in 1997. So what you were
yeah,
saying about him, and that it may have well been him, it could well be because he was very, very involved then, right?
yeah, for many years before he wrote that
Exactly.
book too. So
Yeah.
yeah, so and he worked in Sudbury. So anyway, I would love to figure that out someday. Um, so when I got diagnosed, I tried to go to regular high school again. But nobody believed me that I had ADHD. Nobody believed the test results. My parents didn't believe it. Teachers didn't believe. Nobody believed it. Women didn't get like. Well, it was early days for ADHD, but girls with ADHD, nobody thought that. Nobody. And
No.
so I was just, labeled. What's that book called? You mean I'm not lazy, crazy, and stupid? Yeah, I was like, oh well, no, you don't have ADHD. You're just lazy, crazy, and stupid. So, and that's what it felt like. Nobody said that directly, probably, but it certainly felt that way. And
Yeah.
so, one of the things that I still and people like just believe people when they say they have ADHD. It may not be obvious, but just believe them. It will help them. And it will help your relationship with them. So I left. Let's see. I went and I farmed. I started working on a farm. Actually, when I was 14, 2 years before I dropped out of high school. But working with my hands was what I love to do. And the private school I went to, it was an art school. So my parents were like, well, maybe if she's doing art and being creative, she'll be able to get through. And still, it wasn't enough. But so working with my hands, I did end up going to college on time. I went to a beautiful college called Sterling College of Craftsbury Common, Vermont. Um, and it was an experiential learning school where we worked with on the farm, and we worked with our hands, and we learned we learned forestry. And my degree from there was in resource management and outdoor education. Um, and then after that, I went to four more schools, trying to find the right path for me. I never always wanted to be the right, and needed to be like, I need to find the right way. I need to agree with what I'm being taught. Otherwise, I can't move forward through it. And so I finally ended up at UMass Amherst with a degree that I created myself, outdoor education for social change. So that's where I sort of started, like, even through all these colleges. I got diagnosed. Got misdiagnosed again one time in that time, where the diagnostician said, well, if you can read a book from cover to cover, then you could possibly ADHD. I say, what? I'm interested in it. If I'm interested in something, I could do anything.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's another misconception, and it's still
Yes.
in existence. And I was also diagnosed with dysgraphia. I think it was dysgraphia or dyscalculia. And so similar to, and these dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and dyslexia are very co-occurring with ADHD. So unsurprised that you are diagnosed also with dyslexia. So and then I went on to a series of careers. I was an administrative assistant, really good. As long as I'm doing something for somebody else, I'm really good at it. Doesn't really matter what it is, because that's my motivation to be helpful to people, right? So I was really good administrative assistant. I went into legal. I was a legal secretary for a little while. Then I started my own business in sustainable landscaping. Did that for about 10 years and crashed and burned on that one. But learned so much. And then started working became a director of finance and administration for a nonprofit and did that for 10 years and
Oh,
crashed and burned at the end of that too. So
yeah.
much crashing and burning, but also lots of success in between.
So what I'm hearing underneath it is, and that's my experience, is that I like your doggy. What's his name?
Oh, this is Amia. She won't come up to this. She's shy.
Yeah,
She won't
that's
come up
good.
to the
So I
camera.
like it. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So in any event, the I do a lot of presenting, and if present to younger people in particular, either in high schools, colleges, or universities, is the I ask them a lot of times in a general sense. I usually talk a little bit about ADHD. All my presentations are not about ADHD. You and me are something unique about it, obviously, but that. But I always include it to especially frequency of occurrence and the importance of understanding it, because no matter what you do, you will be touched by ADHD in either the workplace, relationships of some sort or another. To understand the mind of ADHD is important to know and get the feel of it. What it is, it's not negative. In fact, it's the opposite. So what I do if I
Yeah.
give presentations, I say a lot of times to the kids that or the young people that I talk to is say, so what are you going to do after you're finished here? And they said, I don't know. I said, well, it's very important, at least respectfully, in my mind, is that most of your life you will be working. And if you like what you're doing, it's very, very important because it will affect your whole life. And then I saw, I believe, on a US channel where they said that 75% of the people that work in the United States, and I believe Canada is the same, do not really like their jobs. And 70% of the 75% are looking for another job. And so I said then respectfully that it is important. If you think you want to be maybe a truck driver, talk to a truck driver. See what is involved. Should you own the truck? Is it long hauling, short hauling? Find out about what is involved. Or you want to be a contractor of some description in building things. Talk to contractors, see what is involved. Is there opportunities for becoming an operator, or should you be working? What should it be the qualifications, or what should be the specialty? Or if you want to be a doc, find out what is involved, what are the pluses, the minuses, or a lawyer, or for that matter, an entrepreneur. Talk to some people that do that, because it gives you then respectfully, a direction. And saying, like for me, saying that I left school when I was 12 and a half, so I'm nearly 85. So for 73 years, I've been working and saying, okay, John, then you work for 73 years. Are you living the dream? I am. I wrote a book about that. Finding your passion, living the dream. And I still do every day. It's to me a good day. I enjoy with all the challenges up and down, about the workplace and doing all the things that I have done with ADHD and understanding what works for me and what makes me unique with ADHD. it didn't stop me from becoming an author as it did you. So I'm working on my fifth book. It comes out in July, and then I'm working on two more books that I'm doing after this one. And then obviously I'm active in podcasting, and then I'm going to start a platform. In the platform, in the next book that I'm writing is ADD, you can. So and that's the next book that I'm putting out, and then that will also be what I'm doing on the platform podcasting, but still doing podcasting, but also do the platform globally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm saying, where you can, you meaning in a general sense, ADHD is not, and gradually, even now, the stigma is disappearing more and more. Awareness is becoming broader and broader, not being looked at as a liability or stigma. But when I first started with it, and when I was 57, I read the book of Dr. Hollowell. Already I was building businesses, and I would go to the banks. I was very good at what I was doing because I liked it, and I was very good at working with lumber. And then I was always very good no matter what I did. Even in grade 3 and grade 7, I was very good at numbers. I was a very good writer, not a good reader, and still reading to me, still ADHD and dyslexia still affects me even now, or benefits me in a way. But I still do audios on all my books as well. It just takes me a lot longer, But so, and then some people said to me when I do presentations, and I love doing presentations, is that somebody asked me, are you still troubled by the fact that you failed grade 7 3 times? And I said, I am, very much so. Even after all these years, it still troubles me very much. I should have left earlier. That's obviously tongue in cheek. But, the point that I'm making, traditional learning did not work well. It still doesn't, in my opinion. Doesn't mean people should not go to school. I'm not suggesting that. I'm tongue in cheek saying I should have left earlier. But it didn't work for my ADHD mind, the structure of learning. And still today, and I referred to that in my book as well, at the end of the book, I say, okay, interesting observations. Where do we go from here? And so, so one of the directions I believe we have to go with learning is micro-certification direction, where if we in sitting in a school setting for 3 or 4 years, it probably only takes 6 months to learn the core issues that you are trying to acquire with interest, and then the other additive can be added later. Where now a lot of times I find, at least in Canada, I would not be surprised if it wasn't the same in the United States and Europe, is that we're spending far too much time on additives that are not critical to learning the key objectives of whatever we are studying.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I think I'm not sure what do you mean exactly by additives, but I see like my kiddo is the core of his education is pretty well taken care of, and they've actually removed almost all of the additives of like arts and things where he thrives in a lot of places, but he really enjoys doing these extra things that help him get through the rest of his day.
The point that I'm making is this one, Sue, and I'm not an expert on education other than most of my education came not in the school setting, obviously, but in life. And it didn't hold me back from becoming successful. So what I'm saying is the focus, what I see too often is that the focus of somebody qualifying for the core issues they want to be taught or become good at, that they will not qualify in our system, maybe colleges or universities or whatever it is, that because they have to learn this specialty, but they have to know about all this other stuff that will be interesting, but it should not be the core of them qualifying to
Mm.
for, and it should not be saying that within so many months you have to have this or that and the other things, and if you don't have that, you do not qualify to be taught for this
Mm.
direction. And I believe that would be helpful for the problem that I had in school is that if you would have asked me after I left school, what did they talk about, I would have no clue, no idea. I have no idea at all. So because I was not interested, I was living in a different world. But if I am interested, like which I do in podcasting, obviously, which I do in presenting, which I do in writing my books, and obviously in the 10 companies that I have, I must be doing something. If I like what I'm doing, I give it 125%, and I'm very good at it. But if it is a lot of stuff that I'm not interested in it, I have challenges staying focused unless I have a particular reason to say I want to be focused on this, although I don't fully understand it, but I want to understand it because I need it. It's helpful to me.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that is a definitely with the education and people that schools don't take into account how people need to learn in
Exactly.
there, and that's why I went to five different schools. I tried so hard to find an education department that would teach me how to change the school systems in a way that made learning easier for everybody instead of just the people who sort of were able to stay on one track in the traditional way. So,
Now, the other thing that you did is I want you to put up your book if you have it close by. This one here.
yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
what made you write the book? Because writing books is not easy, and especially not for us.
Mhm.
And so for me, and then I want you to tell me about yours as well. I didn't start writing until I understood that I'm ADHD, and then all of a sudden everything changed. And for a long time, people said to me, "Hey, John, yeah, it's such an interesting life. You should write a book about it." So for about 20 years, I tried to start, stop, and then I knew in my mid 60s, if I don't do it now, or mid 70s, if I don't do it now, it will never happen. So all the books that I did, including this one, it took against all odds. It took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it, and so it's not easy, and because it involves, okay, what is the size of the book, what is the front, but should there be pictures in it, or what should be the size of the fonts in it, and on and on and on and on. It's a lot to it, and how do you produce it, how do you market it, and all those kind of things. How did
Yeah.
you get to the point where you are now, produce the book, made the decision, yes, I'm going to write it. It is very, very important to you to share it with others. How did you start the process, and where are you now?
Yeah. Well, so I started the process really back when I crashed and burned from my nonprofit finance career when I got so burnt out that I couldn't function anymore. And I got myself an ADHD coach and I learned how to work with my ADHD. So I've always had the benefit of knowing why things are different for me. But that doesn't mean I ever treated it in any way differently. And so when I was 50, I finally started treating my ADHD in a more holistic way. And so I found myself an ADHD coach, and that work was so powerful. Learning how to really work with my brain in a friendly way for my brain was so powerful to me. I became a coach myself. I told you my degree is in outdoor education for social change. I never used that degree, but it was all about empowering people in the outdoors to really live their full power, in their full power. And I got scared away from that because I was too shy then. But eventually, here I am back at it. It was so powerful for me that I became an ADHD coach. And coaching is all about empowering us to find what the best life for us is, not what the best life somebody else thinks we should have, but the best life for us. And so I got my education at ADCA, the ADD Coaching Academy, and I'm going to get my advanced certification here pretty soon in the fall. And as I started coaching people, I had all these tools that I was using in coaching, but my clients are ADHD. I'm ADHD. We had a really hard time all together keeping track of all the tools that I was using. So one client said, "Why don't you just put them all together?" So I put them all together. I was like, "Oh, well, that's if I add instructions to it, well, that's, almost half a book. And then if I add my responses and my experiences with these tools, that's another, quarter of the book. And then, well, what we're really missing in this society right now, as far as ADHD goes, yes, awareness is changing and it's getting much more. People are becoming much more aware, but it's still sort of considered flippantly, still in these little shorts and this and there's still so much misinformation, and it's either super funny or if it's really negative or whatever. It's all, and people, it's so complex. ADHD is so complex, and so is these shorts just aren't doing it. People aren't learning the right things about ADHD. So then I wrote another part of it, which is a really accessible, research based. What is ADHD and why should you learn about it for yourself? So it all sort of came together by mistake, and not quite by mistake, but I did never set out to write a book. And then once I started, though, I was like a bulldozer. I was no stopping me. I was super hyper focused on it, and I just kept going. I learned so much, and it was really important for me that it was accessible, and I didn't learn enough because someday I want to make it truly accessible, because it should have a little bit of a larger font and stuff. But I did make it ADHD friendly. It's broken up. There's illustrations in it. There's charts. None of the texts are too long. It's in a larger font, not quite large enough to be truly
It,
accessible for vision impaired folks, but
it's
and
for
lots of
the
pictures.
ADHD mind, right?
Yes, yeah.
You can
So
start it anywhere. You can stop it anywhere. You can go from
mhm,
the back to the front, or the front to the back, or in the middle, or wherever you want to be.
yeah,
That's what I
and it's
did.
a hmm
That's
yeah,
what I
and
did.
it's a deep dive into it's not easy work. What I've
No.
created here is not easy work for you to do, right? It's a real deep dive into what are your strengths? How do you acknowledge your strengths and celebrate them without throwing a ton of dirt on them? Um, how do you find your passions? And so you're talking about finding your passions. It's so important to find your passions. But one thing I find with ADHDers is and clearly for you, you're multi-passionate, right? You love writing, you love podcasting, you love your businesses. So many passions. We don't need one passion. I think it scares people away to be like, you need to find a passion. And no, we need to find what we love, and that can be many many things, and for
Correct.
some people it's one thing, and that's okay too.
And
um
that's okay too. Yeah.
yeah, and then it helps you build a toolbox for, because we don't work well in society, right? We have a hard time, we need help sometimes, so it helps you build a toolbox, both help you understand what your needs are, help you understand that it's okay to ask when you need help, and to create sort of an easy resource manual for when you need help. Where do I look? How do I remember who I'm going to talk to? Because our memory is sort of bunk too. So a good, like, resource manual for how to find that help when you need it.
You know what I find interesting, Sue? You did that in your book. It's available now at Amazon and a number of other ones. Uh,
Amazon and on my website. And so I with the after the production, right? So I did the interior design myself because I couldn't find anybody who would be able to do something with my brain in mind. And so I learned how to do the interior design, which is super fun. And then I was like, well, if I can do this, I can just figure out the distribution of it, no problem, right? Yeah, that was a problem.
Yeah.
So we are in the process of redistributing it in a way that it can be available in much more widely. So right now, it's just on my website and at Amazon.
So I hope our podcast is helping you to a certain extent. And the power of podcasting I find amazing is that, when I first started about 6 years ago or 7 years ago and did it more on a local basis, doing interacting, I did blogging because that fits the things that I like to do, interaction, communications. And then I started, COVID came. So we couldn't do that anymore because we couldn't go to the television station because of COVID. So then they said, well, I got this apartment here as an investment that I'm sitting in, right, looking right over the city. So let's make it that a studio. So we did. Made that a studio and then say, again, having more local individuals doing a form of podcasting. And then I thought what I need to do is set up, because there are a lot of interesting people here, but I have to set up another studio. I had another apartment in Vancouver. Maybe I'll set up another studio there, but then I have to go back and forth, which I do already anyway. But then the more I thought about it is that watching television these days, you got one, two, three, four different people speaking from all kinds of over the world, all about issues, and they all look like they are one. And I said, do it virtual. And then we have to find contacts. Is saying Podmatch was a good vehicle for us. And we started that, probably about 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And so that has been very successful for us. And so, and the power of it is amazing because that is the new media, in my opinion. Not newspapers, not traditional television, because 50%, 60% of it is commercials, and a lot of it is either politically leaning or whatever it is. But I believe podcasting globally is where the future lies, in my opinion. And then, and then as we are podcasting, you and me, about ADHD, I know in my channel, we are approaching 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And that means that we probably on the other platforms could have between 2 and 2.5 million people watching our podcast globally. Amazing how powerful it is. And that's why I believe this is the direction that the future will be, more and more towards podcasting of different descriptions. The next step that I want to take is do a platform as well. And we're going to start that in the next 3 or 4 months as well, in addition to doing the podcasting. And then the other part that I did is in regards to books, is as you did in your book, I already started the process without really fully understanding it, but I was encouraged to speak about it and to write about it. And the first book that I wrote is Against All Odds. That is somebody starting from the bottom up during the war years, but already being ADHD and the struggles around it. Then the more I found out about ADHD, I felt I had to write about it. I did. And then the other one, directly, indirectly relating to me as a person and my experience, I wrote about finding your passion, living the dream. And then the next one that I did is the fourth one, is that I say I will be 85 years old in the next 3, 4 months. 85 years young, I call it, is that because there is nothing more important than living young, dying old, and I wrote a book about that. And that's a picture of me, actually. I'm very involved in going to the gym, and I'm competing bodybuilding and physique, qualified for the provincials, then for the nationals, and then for the Arnolds. And again, I'm working on this to again compete in the Arnolds and 2026. And so, but the reason that I did it is quality of life. Age is just a number. Because if you don't have the quality of life and keep yourself fit and healthy, all the other things are not. The most important part is keeping your body fit and healthy, diet, don't abuse your body, drugs, smoke, and all those other kind of things. I wrote about that. But for all, and then the last one that I did is about communications. And this one comes out in June and July. And then the next book that I'm doing is Add You Can. And so we already secured the name, and it will be part of our podcasting, and that's the next book coming out. The point that I'm making, all these books are related to me as an ADHD person going through all the different steps, saying that everything is possible. And that for the people that I believe that your book, my books as well, and on ADHD, is that no matter who you are, where you are, you will not avoid touching ADHD in your circle, your family, the workplace, to know about the ADHD mind is helpful for anybody and as a whole. So that's why I'm suggesting that knowing about what it does and why is very, very important. But it has come a long way from Dr. Halliwell in your region that started studying it and started speaking about it, writing about it, yourself coming from 1988 forward nearly 40 years ago. It has been a long road, and the battle or the objective of making people informed continues globally. That's why it is so important for me, and I believe for you, to be vocal about it. Now, the other part about it that you may find interesting is, I don't know if you can see, you see the price on this book?
Mm-hmm. I do. $25.
25.37, and that's the same as the money I had with me. So the point that I'm making is that what I will do is I will sign my books, and Scott will get the information of your address, and I'm going to send them to you, all four of them. And the fifth one that's coming out in July, as well. I'll keep you informed on it. And so, if you can, send me also one of your books. And so then maybe show your book once more, Sue.
Sure.
And so it is available on Amazon. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is. Yeah. It is available on Amazon right now. The title is ADHD Brilliance, A Journey into Your Extraordinary Mind.
1 second, Sue. I lost. Where is Andrew? I lost it already a while ago here. Yeah. Hey, Sue, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, now you're back. So Andrew kind of walked out of the room here and was looking out of the window and saying, "Where the hell is he?" Okay. So we'll cut that little piece out. But in any event, so what I'm saying again is that, as I said earlier, all four of my books and all five of them, all directly, indirectly, are relating to the ADHD person that said, as you said at some point, I liked with the comment that you made, that you're too dumb to this, to that, and to that, blah, 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 so you won't amount to anything. But what did you call it again?
There's a book actually called You Mean I'm Not Lazy, Crazy, or Stupid?
Lazy, crazy, and stupid. So And this is about that. Is not being lazy, crazy, or stupid, but in fact, to the contrary, it's a superpower if you know how to unlock it. And that's what
Absolutely.
I'm suggesting. I'm not saying better than, but it's part of the world. It's part of male, female. Females will present it differently than males do, likely, but that is it could well be, in my opinion, from the things that I've seen, heard, read, including Dr. Halliwell, that probably 30% of the population is indirectly, directly related to it. And then the other part, if there's 30% of the population are ADHD, dyslexia, or some of the other neurodiversities in combination, that for those people around it, the better informed they are about that in the workplace or in the friendships that they have, the better it is for all of us. But it makes it much, much more interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yep. I actually think we are very much needed. Our ADHD, different ADHD brains are, if we learn how to embrace them and how to use our superpowers, how to really move forward in our strengths, we will be we we're how societies evolve and change. And that's what I love about ADHD is that we're the ones who think outside the box and move things forward.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that's precisely what it is. That a lot of times when I'm in meetings, is that where a lot of people have been trained in business and all the other kind of things that you work in the box, and when I'm in their mix, then I'm usually outside of the box and saying, how about this? How about that? How about the other thing? And so it is a benefit, not a liability. And if you understand it, then you meaning in a general sense, obviously, then you can be very, very successful. And then the other part about it is the book that will come out, my fifth book, that comes out, The Billionaire. We talk about billionaires as well, but ADHD as also a component. Most of them are ADHD.
Hmm.
And that's,
Yeah.
again, is not a surprise to me or you likely, is that, so that it gives a vehicle to success.
Yeah.
Sue,
I have Richard Branson, Bill Gates, I think they are all are, it's pretty amazing.
yeah, it is. Sue,
Mhm.
time went by too quickly, very quickly, and let's make sure we stay in touch. I'm going to send you my books and sign them for you as well. And then let's stay in touch as we go forward. And then maybe 6 months, 8 months from now, we'll have another podcast if you're available, and keep me informed.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I'll send you my book as well, and we'll go from there.
It was a pleasure and a privilege.
All right.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.